Welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. I'm Steve, and we
Mark.
also have Fish.
Sorry, I was muted. Marty. I was muted.
This was a botched. This was a botched beginning to a podcast.
I don't think we got one right yet, honestly. If it doesn't start with my bong hit or Scotty screwing up or
Yeah, today more than usual.
That's what you need.
And I'm Fish Ganja Guy. Good morning.
Oh yeah, him too. Sorry.
So we had some technical issues with the guy from Kapow. We had some problems trying to get his audio straightened out, so we're gonna have him on the show next week, and we're just gonna do a little bit shorter show this week because of it. So apologize for that. He will be on the show next week, but unfortunately, that's why we're starting almost half an hour late. We were trying to get it to work, and it just was not working. So we figured out what the problem is, but unfortunately, it's hardware related. So he's gonna grab that, get that straightened out, and then we'll have him on next week. So apologize for that, guys. Anyways, what have you guys been up to?
Marty, your stories are probably a little less sad than mine, so why don't you start off?
All right. So today I went and I'm getting ready to switch it into flower here in the garden for you guys that haven't been following along, but I'm going to check out my YouTube channel, which is AP Meds. And so I'm getting ready to switch into flower, so I always release some beneficial insects when I switch into flower. So when I was talking to him, the guy about it today, I was talking to him about the podcast that I was doing tonight and the YouTube channel, and I go and I talk to him all the time. They have an aquaponics system there in the front, and he's always been curious, and he grows outdoor in soil, but also enjoys aquaponics just there at the shop and sells some supplies for it. So we've talked before. So anyway, when I told him what I was doing, he offered to donate some bugs and came back out with like a whole bag full of different types of beneficial insects. So there's beneficial nematodes, whitefly parasites, spider mite destroyer bugs, green lacewings, all kinds of different stuff he gave me. So I spent the afternoon shooting videos and releasing those. So that's been kind of fun. And so that's why you see me dodging. I'm getting dive bombed by ladybugs. They just released a bunch of them earlier today. So that's been taking up my time here in the garden, other than like getting stuff transplanted. I had a bunch of transplants I picked up last week after I tore out all of those Platinum Girl Scout cookies that hermed out, so they hermaphrodited. So I had to kill all those, pull them out, and replace them with plants from somewhere else. And anytime you bring them in, whether it's from a dispensary or for me, it was friends that I picked up plants from. But if it's just strawberry plants from the co-op or the farmer's market, just pretty much assume they're going to bring some type of bug with them. So I always treat it that way.
Especially strawberries.
Yeah, I was going to say,
strawberries are notorious for spider mites.
Spider mites.
Yeah, I actually said that in my video when I was talking about it earlier. I don't think I've ever seen a strawberry plant come from any sort of nursery, co-op store, public place of any kind that didn't have spider mites happily living on it. So anytime you bring in plants from the outside, I recommend doing it. And since I just brought in like 20 of them, definitely wanted to do that. No, I had already went through and sprayed with Nukem multiple times, and then I usually give it about 3 days after that.
Have you had any luck with Nukem? Because I've never had luck with Nukem.
Yeah, it's killed pretty much everything. I even put it through the microscope test. I like to. I think I have one of those uploaded on my channel right now, which is just I take the microscope and set it up, my camera up, so that I can see through it and view them and just kind of move the slide around. But so I'll set it up where I can see live spider mites on the plant, and then spray the stuff on there and just record. And
That's fucking nice.
Yeah, so Nukem definitely knocked out everything I've sprayed it on from aphids. Now I don't have any. I'm going to knock on like every piece of wood I've had, but I've never had any russet mites here. I've had two-toed spider mites. I've had like sort of the orangish ones. I forget what they're called. But I've mostly two-toed or two-spotted mites. Sorry, two-spotted mites is mostly what I end up with in here. I've had aphids. I've had whiteflies, but only once. Fungus gnats, obviously, I've had from time to time. And but yeah, for the most part, I would say the two-spotted is the main spider mite I deal with. And usually I use like triple threat predator mites as well, but he was out of stock of those. And I'm going to stop back by next week when he gets those in, and he's going to have around another bugs of different ones. He has some pirate bugs, some more spider mite destroyers, and so yeah, a number of different ones that he wants to just sort of get some promotion done on. So now is a big time of year because it's starting to warm up, so people are getting their outdoor gardens kind of put together, and so it's a good time of year to start thinking about, probably a little bit early still to release them outside, but if you have a greenhouse, it would be a great time to release them. But start thinking about what bugs you want, and sort of, so you start stocking things like amendments and that kind of stuff for just hundreds of outdoor growers that live around here. So he has a great place there, and he donated all of these bugs here so that we could shoot videos and just learn how to use them. So definitely cool of him. So if you guys need any beneficial insects, you can go to his website, which is naturescontrol.com. And there's a phone number right on there, lots of information about the bugs themselves. They do a great job on shipping, and they've shipped across the country everything from ladybugs to different kinds of stuff. And Nathan over there can answer any questions you have about what you should use and when you should use them. And obviously using them all at the same time like I did today is not ideal, but I wanted to show people how to use them and get sort of just each one of them shot. So right now, the main issue is that a lot of them are going to eat each other. So the ladybugs are going to eat the green lacewood eggs, and back and forth. So I call it bug wars. I usually release a couple of them at a time, not this many varieties, but it was just really cool overall to have him do that and to learn about all this different stuff, because I didn't know about half of them when I started. So releasing how and understanding how, like, this right here is a praying mantis egg. I don't know if you guys can see that very well or not, but that's going to release 1 to 200 praying mantis here in a few weeks. So I got a couple of those. I got 3 of those. One of them I already have set out.
The praying mantises are kick-ass for, say you have just a couple of plants or a small area. They tend to do with, a 6 by 6 or 10 by 10 area where they'll cover pretty good, especially for caterpillars or other larger stuff. They really kick ass, but they don't, they're very localized. They generally don't roam around quite as much as some of the other insects, especially if they have a good food source.
Right.
But they're great for greenhouses, and you can even use them in the specific parts of your garden, and they do, will generally stay in that area pretty well, at least in the beginning.
What's the smallest scale of room that you would recommend having a couple praying manti in?
You could do them in a big tent. They're overkill, and a lot of them are going to eat each other, but it just depends on what kind of insects you're fighting,
Well,
Yeah.
like preventative, like they'll just eat on the ladybugs while they're waiting for some spider mites or something to show up.
Yep. I'll be right back. 2 seconds.
Or
I'm
each
gonna
other.
adjust something.
Yeah.
You definitely want to spread them out if you want to keep too many of them. Like you'll get a lot of them that hatch, but if you don't spread them out, they're just going to start killing each other right away.
Yeah, just one in each 3 by 3 bed. That's fine.
Yeah. So I'm gonna when they start hatching, I'm gonna start spreading them out. I have 4 different systems. So I have 2 indoors and 2 outdoors, and then I have some garden beds, soil beds as well. So my plan is to keep an eye on them and do updates on them, and kind of hopefully I'll be able to once I get an idea of when one of them is going to hatch. So here's my plan. So I'm going to keep 2 of them in here in about the same place and hope that one of them starts hatching first, and I'll be able to do a time lapse of the second one hatch. But I don't know if I'll be able to predict it accurately enough to work it out. But it's going to be my goal. We'll see if it works out or not.
Good luck, man. In the few years I've been putting those things out, I never catch it. It happens. Yeah.
Well, hopefully if one of them starts first, then I can set up the time lapse on the other one, which I can run for a couple of days to hopefully get the second one. But with my luck, they'll happen at exactly the same time.
As long as it happens, that's what's important.
Yeah. Have you done the praying mantis before?
Just in the the outside garden. But I'd never see them when I first put them out, but then the next year I see a bunch of them all over the backyard. So it's kind of like, I don't know, for the first several months, they're going to be a little bit too small to really even notice with the naked eye. But then over the course of a year, they'll get to that size where they're about the size of your index finger, middle finger, and you can really start to track them.
Cool.
Whether or not they're effective, I can't say. I've never actually seen them work. I just know that they're there.
Which insects? I'm sorry. Sorry, I had to try and fix something.
We're still talking about
mantis.
Oh, yeah. I've had a lot of good luck with them against crickets and grasshoppers and against caterpillars.
You know, I think they're good for like, taking out scouts, like ants, or, I would say defending an area, kind of like Steve was saying, so that, they're not going to eliminate a current infestation of bugs, but they're a good patrol. They're a great way to keep something out that's not there now.
Yep.
Definitely agree with that. As much as I love ladybugs, they're dumb as hell, so.
Yeah, the ladybugs, I don't know. They're okay. They're good for aphids.
They're great for
aphids. I kind of have been switching more to using, especially in indoor environments, using the wasps. There's lots of really good predatory wasps that you can get now for for aphids and mites and all kinds of stuff, and I've noticed they tend to collapse the population of pests a little bit faster, and they also tend to be able to do a bigger area because they fly. And
you just naturally think they were going to sting me at some point.
No, okay, so for those, when I say that, these wasps are super tiny, super tiny. They're like not much bigger than like a fungus gnat, if that, usually smaller than that.
Will they go after fungus gnats? Because it's going to suck if I start to think I have a fungus gnat infestation.
There's some of them that will, yes. It just depends on what species you get. But for fungus gnats, the easiest way to get rid of fungus gnats is beneficial nematodes.
Sure.
Or just make a dry layer on top of your soil. Put grow media like hydrogen on top, or that'll work. Or you can do newspaper or perlite or anything like that, just to have like a dry barrier at the top, and that'll get rid of them.
So since you mentioned beneficial nematodes, that's another one that he gave me today. So this is a sponge. This is how they come. So there's 1 million of them, probably more. They come soaked up on the sponge. And you rinse out the sponge into a container. I did this clear one right here so that I would be able to show it on the video. But you could do, 1 gallon bucket or 5 gallon bucket or something. But essentially, this is now like a nematode concentrate. So you let it soak for a while and then try to use it within, what is it, about 2 hours, I think, Steve, right?
Yeah, they don't survive super long fully aquatic, but they will disperse pretty quickly in a fully aquatic environment. So, you want to dose them, and then you want to try to always put them into the soil layer, ideally, or put them into the media layer. Don't just dump them into the sump tank or the fish tank. Put them in the media bed or in the soil layer of your root zone, ideally.
Right.
And one thing, too, is if you have access to it, everybody listening, like a digital microscope you could hook up to your computer. When you're starting with a new company for those nematodes, after you put them in the water for a little bit, get a few drops and just put it under the microscope and see if you've got live nematodes or dead nematodes, because that'll let you know if you want to keep on with that company, because I've read some pretty nasty reviews about some people before. So if they ship it with like a block of dry ice or
Well, some of them,
cool, that's definitely a plus.
some of them, you really have to. They have to be awake for a certain period of time. They have like a dormant phase or whatever. So there's a little bit of misunderstanding with some of that stuff. But I definitely hear what you're saying.
So you're saying, even though they look dead, they're not. Is that kind of what you're getting at, Steve?
Yeah, just because they're not moving doesn't necessarily mean they're dead. A lot of them have kind of like a hibernation state when they're kept cold, and unless they've been warmed up to a certain temperature, they won't really do a whole hell of a lot. They kind of just maintain stasis. So that might be part of what some of the issues are. Now, if you were able to take them and culture them for any period of time, maybe a week or half a week or something, I think that'd give you a better idea of what you're dealing with in that regard.
That's good advice. Anything else going on up with you, Marty?
No, that's about it. I've got everything set up here. You can see the sips over here are set up.
Yeah, it's looking
I guess since the last podcast, I have a new bulb in here. This is the 330 watt CMH bulb. I think I told you guys I ordered last time. And so it came in, hooked it up, replaced the bulb, piece of cake, fired it up, no problem. Works great. It's been about a 6 to 8 degree drop just swapping out one of the bulbs. So that's going from a 400 watt metal halide to a 330 watt ceramic metal halide. And so the way I look at it is that, that's roughly about 70 watts of what would have went to heat that is now just not being consumed. And it appears brighter to me, definitely a bluer spectrum. And then I think that's a 4K rated bulb over there for the metal halide, but it's noticeably brighter and noticeably cooler. I can give you, just putting your hand under it, you can tell that it's much cooler than putting your hand under the other one. The 400 watt over there, my hand this close to it would be getting uncomfortable by now. So this is definitely happy with it. And that's the Philips conversion bulb. So it just goes right into a 400 watt metal halide fixture.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, they make them for different sizes too. So if you're looking for those at different sizes, I know they make one 860 watt ceramic metal halide for 1,000 watt HPS ballast. So I know some of you guys might be interested in that. I don't have any of those ballasts. I already had these metal halide lights that I used for veg or mixed into flour before with the LEDs. So now I'm going to have what'll basically be, I already ordered the other bulb for that side like 20 minutes after this was hooked up, just because I was that convinced. And so that's going to help a lot on heat and give me a better spectrum. So with about the same output. So I think they're both rated at 33,000 original lumens. And I know we talked about this on the post a little bit in the aquaponic growers group. And even though lumens is not a great way to measure grow lights,
no, the best way to measure grow lights is PPFD, which is photon flux density, which is how much light is hitting a 1 meter square area per second.
Right. And so there's a number of different links that you can go to. If you look at like bulb comparisons or light comparisons, there's a lot of different ones that they've rated different CMH bulbs and HPS bulbs. And there's some great YouTube channels that go through and test those pretty elaborately. And if you look at CMH, it usually rates up there pretty high in that. And so I definitely recommend it, especially if you have some existing ballasts that you want to swap out. You can just swap out the bulb. So
yeah, that's awesome.
I bought these, the big metal halide lights. They're basically big shop lights. I bought those used off of Craigslist for $25. The bulb is $66 shipped, and so altogether that's like 90 something bucks for a 330 watt ceramic metal halide. So
That's not bad at all.
yeah, if you can swing that, you know, or even something close to that, I think it's pretty good. And there's probably a lot of people, I would think, that, you know, probably already have a ballast sitting in their garage that maybe they're not using. And they, you know, they work on a number of different, they call them the Philips All-Start, because they're designed to work on like something like 6 or 8 different ANSI ballast codes. So
that's awesome.
Definitely
and those are
check
new,
them out.
right? I don't remember seeing those before.
They've actually, these were manufactured in 2015. Started manufacturing in 2015, but
Cool.
I don't feel like they got a lot of attention from growers. And they, how I ended up finding them was through like just a high bay shop light, so like gymnasium lights. They were advertising these conversion bulbs to save power. And so just in that, that's how I stumbled on them. And then there is a couple of posts on them on IC Mag. If you want to venture into that rabbit hole, you can look up this. I would look up CMH conversion bulb.
Mm-hmm.
There's 400 watt conversion bulb, a 600 watt conversion bulb. I think there's even a 250 watt down to like 160 or 180 or something like that. There's a whole list of them. So CDM, Philips CDM All-Start, and I know that I posted a link to it in the Aquaponic Cannabis Growers group earlier. You can see the whole family of them, and I think it goes down to 250 or maybe even 300, something like that. I know it goes down relatively low, but for the 400 watt, the 330 is I feel like a great pairing. I'm gonna 2 of those over this. And then I'll have the LEDs on the other side. So that'll be a little over 700 watts of just sort of cheap 5 watt diode LEDs on that 4x8. And then this CMH setup here will be 660 watts of CMH. So be a nice sort of comparison. I have a couple of strains on both sides, so we'll see how that goes and just kind of do a fun little comparison. But ideally, I want to switch out these other LEDs for cobs or other 315s if I can swing another deal like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Marty, I'd say keep an eye on the grow off I'm doing. Hold on a second.
What's that?
We a little bit. I got 1 second. Shit, where's that echo coming from? Anyways, I was gonna say keep an eye on the grow off that I'm doing right now on my channel, because I'm doing the Black Dog LEDs against Spectrum King.
I saw that.
Right, like you got right there, and
yeah, talk about that, because we were talking about when you came out last week. So, Fish Ganja Guy came out to see me for my birthday last weekend. I turned 30 over the weekend, which was pretty.
Where were
cool.
you, Marty?
Yeah, where were you, Marty?
I was taking care of my children. What were you doing?
One of our children.
Selfish asshole. No,
I know, right?
You coming out to DGC?
My
Not
children.
to totally hijack the Ganja Guy here. Are you coming out to DGC?
Me or Marty?
No, it's Marty.
Yeah,
No,
Marty.
I'm not.
Oh.
My wife is extremely pregnant, so I'm not going anywhere.
Oh, well, that's a pretty good reason.
Well, extremely congratulations there, Marty.
Yeah, congrats.
Well, thanks. Yeah, so she's due on May 10th.
I'll do this funny time for the cup. Come on out.
Yeah.
Not quite there yet.
Yeah, you still got a couple weeks before, you know.
Yeah, it's not about that. She's starting to get to the stage where she needs help putting her shoes on and stuff like that. So it's definitely time to stick around home a little more.
And she can't let you go.
Priorities like
fly out
party.
She can still. You know what? She can still trim while sitting. No, I was kidding.
Who said she didn't? Wait, what? There's no place to put the trim bin though. It's awkward.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we were talking about Spectrum King, and I watching
the Black Dogs.
And I don't know as much about Black Dog, but I've followed Spectrum King for a while. You know, he's got, you know, one of the more popular YouTube videos and channels. They do a lot of stuff. And they were pretty quiet for a little while, but now I've noticed they were back. They've done a number of different grow offs. With you know, they had HPS and
Yeah, they're doing it double-ended right now.
yeah, they did. And so I feel like they did a lot of really, or at least attempted to be transparent grow offs, and it's very telling. I think they get a lot of good results. So how do you feel about the Spectrum King? Which one do you have?
I have 2 SK400 pluses right now. Definitely like them. I have one Phytomax 1 series from Black Dog LED and one 400 of the Phytomax 2 that just came out that I'm running and seeing how it does. Comparing those together. So,
do you want to talk about the Black Dog thing that came up?
I'm going to be discussing that at the end of the grow off, and I'm like breaking down all the pros and cons.
Okay.
I did have one issue arise with the Black Dog that it's nothing I can't work around, but it's still something that may inconvenience people out there. So I'm going to mention it at the end of my show. But lights are absolutely fantastic. I've had great results with them in the past, and the plants are all looking super healthy right now. Now, the one thing that I've noticed is the vegetative state. I think I'm going to be giving that to Spectrum King for sure. Because looking at a couple of the plants that I have in the side-by-side so far, before I trimmed and mainlined them and realized, shit, I didn't take a bunch of pictures first. But the Spectrum King ones definitely seem to bush out a little bit more and looks a little bit more vibrant as far as their growth and coloration. And I attribute that to Black Dog's heavy emphasis in the blue spectrum, and Black Dog doesn't go with that as much, but I'm not going to count them as the overall winner yet, because I know that with the UVA, UVB, and infrared that Black Dog has in their lights, that's really going to help with trike production and just overall flowering. And I'm actually going to be loading up some footage a little later that I took earlier of.
Are you going to test both of them for potency and all?
Oh yeah, no, I'm going to be getting potency as well as terpene profiling done. That's how I'm determining the winner. I'm not doing weight, because some of the clones
you should also do weight, unless the clones weren't the same size.
They weren't. Some of them were not the same size because of the fact that I'm horrible at cloning. So some were definitely several weeks older than the others.
Practice
horrible cloning.
If there's only somebody you knew that got a fancy new press, you know, they could press all the rosin out of it, and then you could the yield of the actual
terp yield,
terpenes and THC, the actual content itself, because I feel like sometimes
doesn't squish.
Yeah.
So,
how did that go, by the way?
Got a new press, but aside from that, I think that
we'll talk about it.
Yeah, but I think that that's really the only way that you could do a straight comparison, like, because you're growing resin, right? I mean, that's what you're after. It's not like total weight. You know, if it's got who cares if it's got a 20-ounce stem? You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like you're growing resin. That's what you're growing.
Yeah, so and you generally want to grow more indica heavy for the terpenes.
Yeah, no, I would definitely go more for indica heavy strains. Just because if I'm going to be using them, I'd rather have something that, well, even if it's a hybrid, is still indica dominant. So I won't get any anxiety, but I still have a little creative energy, and I can go for a good hike or something. But yeah, I got the infrared thermometer gun out, and one thing that I did notice though is while both of them around the diodes are around 122 to 125 degrees up there, the leaf surface temperature was consistently 2 or 3 degrees higher on the Black Dog side, but I entirely attribute that to the infrared that's coming off of it. And that 3 to 4 degrees kept it right around 85, 86 on the leaf surface, which is what we want in the room with LED. So it's perfect.
Nice.
So we shall see. I got everybody manifolded, and I'm going to set up the scrog netting this weekend and give it about 6 more days after that, and flip it.
Cool.
Right on.
Anything else?
Hey, speaking of LEDs, did you guys see the video from Chill LED?
Oh, underwater? Yeah, that's pretty tight.
General 2, yeah. So his Gen 2 light, he does a video where he has his new quantum board light, and it opens up with him standing next to this giant acrylic tank full of water. And you're like, he's going to turn that light on and put it in there, isn't he? And then that's what he does. And then on top of that, he takes the driver for the LED quantum board light and drops it in the tank as well.
That's pretty cool.
And so immediately I was like, oh my God, that's a tank heater. Like, oh my God. So discuss. What do you guys think?
I think it might be hard
I don't
to
know. It
regulate
depends.
Sure.
Depends how much heat the drivers put off. But drivers generally don't put that much heat off. At least from the LEDs that I built.
Well,
I guess it would depend on how many diodes you're running per driver more than anything else.
Well, it's pushing 400-watt quantum boards, so 200 watts each to quantum boards, and so it's consuming a full 400 watts. So I would assume it's putting off some heat, but it's because it's a highly efficient driver. It's
well, the other issue would be you need to keep the lights on for a set period of time. What do you do if the water's getting too hot because you're heating it?
You see, that was my thing. Well, just run them during.
You have to put it on a closed loop and a heat exchanger, so that it could be turned off and on or still circulated.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. You'd have to have like a heat exchange tank, separate from your main tank, unless you were if you're in some places in Colorado. I mean, you could probably
if you're high enough altitude, you never need to worry about overheating.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Just really run it during winter, depending on your state.
Right, and obviously you can just take it out of the tank when you know it's starting to, when it's starting to warm up. And so it wouldn't be like any type of automated thing, but man, it would make for places where you needed heat year round, for instance, or like Alaska or a greenhouse that you ran through the wintertime. Any of those situations, I feel like you could, you could just drop that thing in the tank for 9 months out of the year and just call it good. And really all it's doing is making it, well, all it would do, I guess, is make your better use of the heat you're putting off anyway by capturing it in the tank and allowing it to disperse off over time, as opposed to just dispersing off into the air. So that was the first thing I thought of when I saw that video, was not only, first of all, holy shit, you just threw that whole light and driver into a tank and it's still on, but on top of that, like, that would be a dope tank heater.
Yeah, I'm definitely not the person to talk to about the right tank heaters and taking care of your fish properly.
So, hey Fish, what's been up with you?
Oh no, just fish graveyard. Yeah. So for anybody who's not aware, California was pretty cool this winter, pretty rainy. But then the last few weeks we had a pretty nasty heat spell. It went from in the low 70s at the highest to high 90s for several weeks. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to turn off the tank heaters in my outdoor tank. The tilapia and all the koi and everybody look good. So I turned off the heaters that I have in there and went out of town for a few days. And during that time, the temperature immediately dropped from the 90s back down to like the 40s during the night. So that sudden temperature change killed like 20 of my koi, which I was very unhappy about because the tilapia are expendable. They're food. I named them food 1 through food 30. And the koi are the ones that were the keepers, the pets that would come up and let me hand feed them because they have no survival instinct. But yeah, that was a little bit of a bummer when I saw those corpses in there. A little less than happy.
Moral of the story: never leave home.
When you're in flower.
When you're in flower, never leave home. He's paid that. Fish ganja guy has had that issue multiple times.
Fudge,
no, it's true. It's happened to me too. Like last year in my outdoor, I ended up having to go out of town like back to back, unplanned. So I had to go out of town at first because my little brother-in-law, who he lived with me from like 14 to 20 or something like that. Decided he was going to enlist in the Army and needed help like getting stuff back and forth. So I spent like 3 days helping him get his stuff together and get him off to where he needed to be. And so I was gone for 3 days on that, and then I got back, and a couple of days later, I ended up having to go out of town again to go to a funeral. And so altogether, there was like, 6 to 7 days because I was back for a day and then left. But basically, my pH got way out of balance because my neighbor was watching my system for me. He, basically, I was like, look, just feed the fish. Like, everything else will be fine. Just feed the fish. Like, that's all I really want you to do. Keep an eye on the plants. Make sure nothing blows over or, water falling out on the ground or something. For the most part, just feed the fish. But of course, I come back and the first thing I notice is like all of the tanks are completely full of water, like completely full. And I've been gone long enough to know that I should have lost a considerable amount of evaporation in the plants just drinking.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the first thing I thought I'd have to do when I got there. So immediately I was like, why are all the tanks full? And he's like, I filled them all up for you. And that'd be great, except for my well water is like 8.5 pH. So
oh fuck.
So my pH skyrocketed in all my tanks. All of my like calcium was super high because my well water has lots of calcium carbonate in it. So
yeah.
It basically put me, probably I lost about a solid 2 weeks worth of veg time where they went into lockout, and then by the time they came out of lockout and started growing again, I lost a considerable amount of growth. But at least I was in veg, not flower, because obviously that
recover, yeah,
that would have been worse. But it still turned out relatively good, just smaller size plants overall.
So for most people who don't know, Steve, I think I told you about it. I was furious about it. Marty, I don't think I told you. So I don't think I've had one grow where something really funky did not happen at some point during flower. And this last time was no exception. I was doing a 3-week flush, and just about 2 weeks into the flush, I was unaware of this, but my surge protector / timer for 2 of my 3 lights broke. So 2 of my 3 lights were on for 24 hours a day for like 5 days, like halfway through flush. So I finally discovered that. I wasn't quite sure if the plants were more stressed or I was. It was a little sketchy, but everything came through all right. But yeah, I have just a curse during flower, so I'm not going to leave the location for a couple weeks at that point.
Trap.
Oh yeah, I'm sleeping in there.
Right.
You'll tell yourself it'll be fine, but it's a trap.
Yeah.
Yep. Women be warned. The plants come first. So,
Well, dude, I love my ladies.
right.
Everybody needs a harem.
Mm-hmm.
What else is new with you, Ganja guy?
Not too much, man. Just the grow off. Just finished the funerals for all my koi, and that's about it.
You're doing a little phenome hunting too, yeah?
Oh yeah, always doing that. So when I finally am able to go somewhat commercial, I've got some good mothers on deck. I actually just popped another 6 Afghanimal seeds from in-house genetics that I acquired at the Neptune Seed Bank, and I'm gonna finish hunting through those because the one that I have up here is just a great mother. And then I've got some stuff from a breeder from Humboldt Seed Organization known as 42. I got his Cross of the Titans that I'm testing out. It's oh god, what is it? It's Clash of the Titans, which is Medusa crossed with Bubblegum, and he's the grower of the Emerald Cup winning Best Shit Ever. That's what it's crossed with. So I'm really looking forward to that. Then I've got Geist Grow OG. I've got glazed black cherries from Keith Sweat, and from Andromeda Genetics, I've got what the hell is it? Joey No Socks coming up, and then right now I'm going through a bunch of crystal cookies from In-House Genetics, which is platinum cookies crossed with monster cookies, I think. No, animal cookies, and God, what the hell else is in there? I think that's all I'm really pheno hunting right now. Everything else is just regrow from the last one.
Word. I got a little phenom hunting. Well, we're starting to get established on it in San Diego now. We got a little project we're working on down there, on a new little company down there. We just got setting up the lab now. We just got a rosin press, and we've been doing some phenom hunting for our medical grow as well, which is kind of fun. We got quite a few different strains going right now, trying to see what's good. 70% of those seeds will get trashed after a couple weeks once we see how they do. So
Composted.
Later
yeah.
this year,
Well, you know what we do?
hunting the one that you gave me, Steve. I'm gonna be pheno hunting that Shirley Temple.
Yeah, dude.
You
That
doing
one's a really good one. Nice high CBD, high THC.
So was that like Charlotte's Web and what was it Afghan One or Cherry Kandahar or something like that?
Yeah. It's the parent strains of Charlotte's Web plus Afghan 1 plus strawberry cough on the one that I gave you.
Sweet.
And then
I
the
bet
other
two-
one that I couldn't give you was I have another version of that, but the strawberry cough is replaced with sour tsunami, if memory serves me right.
Damn, dude, that sounds really CBD potent.
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. The other one is the Afghan is swapped with a Harlequin, and the other one is the sour tsunami. I got 3 different versions of that Shirley Temple where most of the parent strains are the same, and then we.
So did you do that crossing yourself, or did you pick them up from a bank?
No, yeah, I did that crossing with in Colorado, one of the projects I was working on.
Okay,
I
so
was gonna say, you told me it was Harley.
What's that?
I was about to say, I thought you told me it was Harlequin. So
Yeah. So I have 3 versions of that. I have 1, 2, and 3, and they all have Woo 4, Woo 5, and I forget what the other one is. There's the 3.
Wu-Tang.
Yeah, there, and then the other one, the one has Harlequin, or the one has Harlequin, the one has Afghan 1, and the other one is Sour Tsunami. But I gave him the one that is the and the Strawberry Cough was the other one. I'm sorry. Strawberry Cough is the one that you have.
Nice.
So it was the one that I had. I looked it up. It's the one I have all the seeds on. So it's super good.
So I have 2 bullets. Actually, I have 4 strains that I'm getting ready to pheno hunt, sent to me by a couple of different breeders, and I didn't think about having those on the show, so I don't even remember what breeds they are, but they sent them to me to do testing on. Actually, if you see the server cabinet that's here behind me, that's getting built out to be the little test flower area. So I have one friend of mine has a 3D printer, and he's 3D printed his own like LED holder for like strip lights that he wants me to test out for him. So I'm going to put that inside that, paint the whole inside flat white, and build a little system in there for it. And then that's where after I do the pheno hunts, I'm going to put them inside there, and that's what we'll do the actual test flowers in there. So that'll be kind of a fun little project once I can make more room in the veg area, sprout those seeds, find the pheno I want, and clone it and get it in there. So it'll be a while, but it'll be a fun project.
Cool. So yeah, I've been playing with my new rosin press. You guys are on the Facebook group, so I did like an unboxing video when it got to the shop, and we've been getting it all set up. And today we got it all put together and got the airline. We had an issue with the airline between the compressor and there, and replaced the part that was messed up with the dryer, and got that all running today. And after the show, I'm still down in town, so probably do some pressing. If not, we'll do it tomorrow when I come back. So that'll be lots of fun. Be able to do lots of rosin at a time. Thanks again to Pure Pressure. they were on the show a couple episodes ago, and we got our press from them, and yeah, good dudes. Been really helpful with trying to get that all going. Yep.
Have you pressed with it? I'm sure you've been messing with it all day, right?
Yeah, I've been playing with it all day. You can actually do up to 30 grams at a time with it, which is pretty fucking cool. Like you could rail through, quite a few pounds per day with this machine if you wanted to.
How did the that one thing do that I gave you?
The Afghanimal?
Yeah.
The Afghanimal we haven't pressed yet. We're gonna take probably 4 or 5 grams and press it and see how it goes. But I'll let you know. It'll be the first time I've ever had aquaponic rosin, so that'll be pretty cool.
Oh, you never forget your first, unless it's really good, in which case you will.
Yeah, right. It's the only product where you forget your first time, And then it's a good thing if it happens.
Right.
And then been having I have a little outdoor veggie grow that we've been rocking, and that's been really kicking ass. We got I don't know, maybe 30 different types of lettuce. I have about 6 different types of mustard greens, 6 different types of kale, maybe a dozen types of broccoli, beets, radishes, kohlrabi, carrots, bunch of herbs, and that's been really kicking ass outside. Marty, did you want to talk about that project that we were talking about earlier today, or do you want to wait? Or
Oh yeah, go ahead, man.
okay, well, why don't you go ahead and I'll let you say it since.
All right. Well, one of the things that Steve has gotten a lot of feedback from his class, from having his on-site class, and I've been doing more online content, and that's kind of been what we got for feedback, that people want more online content. And so we want to do an online version of Steve's class, and sort of combine it with the overlap content I have for more home grow stuff, and do a class together. So we're thinking it'd be a 2-day class on the weekend. Steve, what dates were you thinking again, or did you?
I think it was April 22nd and 23rd, so it's Earth Day and the day after Earth Day, or day before Earth Day.
That's way too close to when his wife's supposed to give birth. Come on, man.
Hey, remember priorities.
We discussed which day it was, and if he ends up having to bail out because of a baby, I don't think anyone's going to be that disappointed.
Yeah, that's true. And so we'll get some details published on that pretty soon. I'm going to finish up some slides, and we've got some.
When you do May what? Let's do it that weekend. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, let's do May 10th. That sounds good. My wife will mind it all.
Yeah, live streaming. Just bring a plant into the operating room. Just sitting there next to her while the
live streaming my death sounds like so much fun, Steve.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
That'd be great.
I think it'll sell.
We'll celebrate the birth together.
My only video that would ever go viral, and I wouldn't even know.
No, that's really awesome though that you guys are having another bunch.
Greatest artists are always appreciated after their death.
Right.
That's right. I'm sure that's what'll happen.
And after that, his wife would surely kill him.
Otherwise, I'm just gonna be poor my whole life and won't be worth anything. Like most artists, right?
Right.
Actually, I guess it's a good thing I have an IT company. It lets me buy most of the shit.
But yeah, he's got a bunch of content, and he's gonna do a bunch of the live video stuff because I am under NDA with my stuff right now, and I can't bring a camera in because it's under the company's NDA, at least in the back end. So until my medical grow gets further along, I don't have a ton of video content exactly where I'm in right now. So Marty's going to do a bunch of the live stuff, and he's got a bunch of different content with teas and some other stuff that he's got really, really awesome stuff with. And then I have my slide deck that I use for stuff. I'm going to alter it to be a little more web friendly, and then we're going to do a little joint web class for you guys, and it'll be like a 2-day weekend long class. You can see your computer, we'll have the chat up and everything. You guys can talk to us, ask questions and things, and it'll be a really good time.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a lot of fun. So we'll have that video in here. So if Steve wants to, he's talking about dual root zone, then we'll be able to show exactly what that looks like here, and talk about the stuff that I have examples of. and be able to show you that stuff. So like here we can look at the dual root zone, and I can move the camera around and stuff. And I'm trying to get it situated better to do more training type videos, because I've been working on some Patreon videos a lot in the past few days. So trying to get the cameras set up in different places and figuring out different ways to shoot. But we'll also cover SIPs or sub-irrigated planters, and all different kinds of that. Obviously, the beneficial insects will be another thing that we can talk about. So we'll try to cover all of that content in in just a couple of days. So it'll be much more concentrated as opposed to like my Patreon page, for instance. If you guys haven't checked that out, you can head over to patreon.com/apmeds. And it's more of just an ongoing thing. So, I'll be teaching you guys about whatever I'm doing at the time. So right now, just this last week, I was doing training because in transplanting and setting up new plants, that's what all the videos are about, because that's what I was doing. So most of the content will just be ongoing and revolve around what I'm doing. So, coming up in the next week or so, we'll have more beneficial insects videos. On what, then we'll probably start doing things like concerns when you're switching into flower, making sure you don't have light leaks, making sure that you're thinning out or lollipopping the bottom if you want to do that, and sort of what the general consensus is about it. Different sort of informational stuff for people who maybe have done aquaponics before, but don't know kind of the nuances of growing cannabis. It can be helpful to just sort of follow along with what I'm doing, whether you're doing your own grow or you're waiting to do your own grow, or just kind of give you background access to that. So that'll be sort of a little bit of information spread out over a long period of time. So
I just want to ask a little different. Is there a difference at all between a SIPS system and a wicking bed?
No, it's the same
different
thing.
names for the same thing.
Yeah.
Different name for the same thing. The only thing that I would say that's a little bit different is like the original design for what they call the SIPs, sort of demands aeration, or at least somewhere for the air to escape, which not all wicking beds have that sort of requirement. That's the only thing that I've noticed to be specifically different, is that for like the earth box kind of design, let me see if I can get the camera down there, or if it'll just freeze up on me here. There it goes. So you can see down here, these are the breather tubes that go down to the bottom. And the idea is to be able to allow the water reservoir to have a space at the very bottom. So between the soil and the top of the water line is an airspace that's allowed to breathe out of this tube right here. And some wicking beds do have that, but I've noticed a lot of them don't. But most things that you see defined as a SIPS or an earth box kind of design have that breather tube on them.
Sure. We try to do wicking beds. Well, not wicking beds, but we try to do smart pots filled with soil in a aquaponics, and we had issues we tried it 3 separate times, and every time we had issues with root rot right at the end, because it just stayed too wet, and as the plant starts to shut down the root system at the end, we were having issues. But it could always have been the soil mix we were using.
Right. And one of the things that you do in see if I here, let me grab this stuff over here. I would encourage everybody to do that does a wicking bed or a SIPS is to use something like this. This is the EM1 Bokashi brand. I've shown this a couple of different times, but basically it's just a rice bran that's been soaked with microbes, and I usually just mix it into the water that I feed to it. But the idea is that bottom reservoir with a dominant anaerobic. In this case, it would be like lactobacillus, which is what's in this Bokashi. So you could do labs, which will also cover how to do those. I'm going to try and get some going and have them in different states at the same time. So normally it takes a couple weeks to be able to make them. So if I start staggering them,
don't forget to add your spirulina to your labs.
right? Spirulina, is that what you said?
Yep. Or you could add spirulina, moringa leaf, or what the hell's what's the other freshwater one that's like spirulina? I can't remember the name of the other algae. What they have it at the place we went to go get algae shots or whatever the fuck. It's a posh.
Like for a food source, or what do you?
Yeah, people eat it. It's a type of algae. Anyways, it's like a freshwater version of spirulina. You can use any of those, and they'll provide a really large amount of minerals and nutrients to your labs, and really give them a big extra boost.
That's awesome. So that's sort of like a hybrid between between that and a ferment.
Yep.
And we can talk about fermented plant juice or extracts, or however you want, whatever term you want to use for it. But essentially, fermenting different things, whether you're talking about like watermelon rinds and food waste, banana peels, all kinds of different stuff, or like whole plants like comfrey or horsetail fern, different stuff like that, which are great.
Yeah, horsetail is another great one for ferments.
Yeah, actually, when I was at the grow shop today, picking up some panda film, I noticed their water feature outside is covered in horsetail fern. It's like a waterfall, and horsetail fern was like growing all around it. And I was like, oh, that's funny. Look, you could just cut down for free what they're selling inside for bags.
Yeah.
Like you can come back after it's closed and just cut down some horsetail fern, take it home instead of the bag of powdered silica they have in there for $20 or whatever it is. I just thought it was funny. But anyway, that's something else that we can cover, where you're basically feeding them a different food source.
Yep.
Like Steve was talking about, to be able to get more than just microbes to do that. So then I would be adding some nutrients and the beneficial microbes to that water reservoir down there. The plants can uptake the nutrients, and the microbes can feed off the food source that you put in there. So, and the idea is to keep it from going pathogenic. You can go anaerobic, not go pathogenic, and create things like root rot and stuff like that.
Absolutely. You can also add things like trichoderma. They also help a lot if you end up with root rot, as far as outcompeting it.
Yeah, outcompeting. That's
it's also good to use the trichoderma as a preventative too, but definitely.
Yeah, just don't go too crazy with it, because it can wipe out all your other bennies.
Very true.
So, what else have you guys been up to? What else is new? I haven't had a chance. I've been so busy with my birthday and like just stuff with the new Canadian company and everything. I really haven't had a whole lot of time to look at the news or anything like I normally do for the podcast.
I've just been busy with plants, man. That's been I think I got a whole bunch of them I had to transplant and get all ready to go and build the rest of the SIPs for, and researching the lights. So I pretty much talked about all the stuff I've been up to. It's
Cool.
It's been a lot just inside. You think about just, what was it, like a week ago or so? I had to tear all my plants out of here. They were all hermaphrodites. So from going to like tearing everything out to get everything back together and going again, it's been a roller coaster, but it's been fun.
The one other thing is we might end up having a quick impromptu show on Monday or some first half of the week next week. We tried to get the guys on from MFP, but I guess they're pretty booked solid with stuff this time of year. But he said they're going to try and squeeze us in maybe in the first half of the week. So keep an eye out for that. We're going to try and get an interview with them, and that'll be really cool, because them and Kapow, we definitely talk about more than most of the other products on here, and I've been working hard to try and get them on the show and get you guys interviews. Does anybody in chat have any questions?
Hey, Steve, I got to take off in a second.
Okay.
Oh, sounds like Scott's
I got to go help her carry some stuff out of the car.
Okay, go have fun.
All right, later, guys.
Cheers. Sorry for being slightly unprepared today. Kind of was expecting to have the guest on, which normally takes up a certain amount of time on the show. So, yeah, just a little slightly underprepared than compared to usual. I think we've all had a little bit of a weird week this past week. So,
Yeah. I think I'm pretty much out of stuff to talk about at this point.
oh, one other thing I was going to mention. Oh, shout out to True Aquaponics. I know he's been having a lot of cool insect data things.
Yeah.
He's been posting lately. Super beneficial for people if you're looking for a resource. Obviously, they're not specific to cannabis or anything like that, but lots of good information he's been putting out lately. Colin Black, we had him on the show recently. He had a really good video this week on silica. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, like I said, the Chill LED grow lights. Check out the demo video of their Gen 2. They just posted earlier this week. They're, check it out. Even their Gen 1 models were nice, but the quantum boards in their Gen 2 model, check those out. They are pretty nice lights, and they're definitely expensive. But for those of you guys that are looking for top of the line LED, that's going to give you that, over 1 gram per watt yield and a high efficiency rating.
Yep.
For what you're getting, it's a very high quality product. So check those out. Check out Groma. He's kind of the where I got introduced to the Chill LED lights. He does a lot of DIY LED stuff. And so definitely check out his channel if you're into lighting. He has a lot of good information about what Steve and I touched on earlier. How a lot of the ratings that they use for lights are not not a great way to rate bulbs. Like just starting out, for instance, like we talked about lumens not being a great way to measure a grow light. So he can talk a little bit more in depth about some of the math behind that.
Mm-hmm.
I have one. What could cause a cola to develop solid white calyxes on the very tip top? So it sounds like
what kind of? Well, yeah, it sounds like light bleaching. What kind of lighter you're using, Brian Grow? If you're using an LED or really high powered HPS or HID, you definitely do that. Hey, MPK Kyle, do you have any questions this week? Our guest ended up having to bail at the last minute.
300 watt LED. Are you what size diodes? Like how big of an area is that?
How close is it to the light? LEDs especially can fry your colas.
Okay, let me switch over so I can see where my camera is.
If anyone else in chat has any questions, feel free to ask. Or, like I said, because of the guest having hardware issues, he'll be on next week. So if you have any questions, fire away. If not, I guess we'll.
I don't know if this is focused very well or not. Hopefully it'll refocus here in a second. I don't know why, but it's not like.
Definitely. Well, what we could do is talk about stuff this time of year. If you're thinking about growing outdoor, that might be a good topic. Do you want to talk about the stuff that you're doing, for an outdoor grow this time of year, and then I can.
I can't grow outdoor anymore.
Oh, I know, but like, if you are growing outdoor, what would you be doing this time of year?
So it's a sore subject. No.
Yeah. Don't ask me, asshole. I'm mad about it still.
No, so I definitely this time of year, if you haven't already started your clones or seeds or whatever it is that you're gonna have, definitely get them started. It's too early to put them out where I am here in Southern Oregon, but it depends on where you're at in terms of latitude, right? So how long your days are dependent on your latitude. So for me here, I usually say May 15th is sort of like the safe day. So the days are long enough that your plants aren't going to go into flower. That's basically the whole idea. If you put them out too soon and the days aren't long enough, just like if you have a short light cycle inside, they start going into flower. And then they go and start re-vegging to go throughout the summer, and that can either cause issues or actually it can be really great. I know some people that do it on purpose. So what they do is they put their plants like a week into flower indoors and then put them outside after May 15th and let them re-veg outside. And so basically they go from a semi-flowered state back into a veg state, and they start shooting off all kinds of stuff. And that's the same thing that you see back here on some of the aquaponics videos. You can see the sour strawberry back there is been re-vegged, and even this one right here has been re-vegged a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see that inside there, but it's they get a distinct look to them. The leaves curl up and lots of stuff. But so I definitely think that. Well, I can't remember that. Yeah, that one's definitely re-vegged, but the sorry, I totally forgot what I was talking about. I can't get this camera to work, and it's really bugging me.
About what people should be doing this time of year if you're going outdoors.
Oh yeah, so outside, you want to re-veg your plants, or if you want to re-veg your plants, you can. But ideally, to keep them from going into flower early, you want to put them out at the proper time. Here in Southern Oregon, my date would be May 15th, and you can check how long your days are. There's some sun calculators on it. And I'm going to turn the stupid camera off, back on, and see if we can get it to work. I can remember what the hell I'm doing.
Awesome. Yeah, that's about what the date that I would use would be, second or third week of May. So that's what we used in Colorado. Although the one year we did it, we got fucked because we had a prolonged cloudiness, and it threw everything into early flower, which pissed them all off. But they ended up with nice dense nugs. They bounced back, but they definitely stunted for about a half a month. So, which sucked. We had following up from Brian. It says light bleaching a form of light stress. Yeah. What'll happen is the plant will just stop producing any chlorophyll because the light's simply just too intense if it's too close.
Well, that's what I tried to move the camera to show them. I keep my LEDs about 18 inches above the canopy, and maybe even a little bit higher if I don't have them pulled down. And like I'm training mine to the net relatively tight, so I would say 18 to 24 inches would be as close as I would put a 5-watt diode light.
Yeah, absolutely.
That 3-watt diodes you could probably put within like 6 to 8 inches without an issue. Yep. But the higher intensity ones, I would say 5-watt or cob lights. Even though there's a lot of cob LEDs are essentially a whole bunch of 3-watt diodes. They're so close together. It's just more intense in a smaller area instead of spread out. So that would be my suggestion there.
Awesome. We have another question here from MPK Kyle. He says, what is the purpose of a mineralization tank? So a mineralization tank is used sometimes by other types of people that do aquaponics to take fish waste and basically put it into a compost tea brewer, as far as cannabis, to equate it to something in cannabis. And then they brew up those nutrients to a point where it helps break down some of the nitrogen and unlock some of those other ones. Sometimes they'll seed it with a microbe culture, but that's what they're referring to in mineralization. We don't use it a whole heck of a lot because what happens is the nitrogen tends to be too high. You end up with really high nitrogen, which if we're doing flower or, we need to have tight control over that to make sure we're getting good branching and good plant growth with cannabis. So we'd rather have more control and use microbes and just base mineral inputs most of the time. Now, you can use it to boost some of your nutrients, but it does, again, can cause nitrogen issues, and it makes it, in my opinion, overly difficult to balance because you don't really know what your input you don't really know what the balance of that fish waste is, and unless you can measure the volume exactly of how much the fish waste is, you have a hard time figuring out what the exact nutrient content of that is, or after post brewing, when you're doing it just pure from fish waste. So maybe Donald Bailey has more information on that. I know you mentioned him. He says, I was listening to the earlier episode with Donald Bailey. He was talking about solids, they're remineralizing them, wondering if the mineralization tanks helps with that. Yeah, it does help, but it kind of takes away some of the level of control. So while you can use it to boost your nutrients, and if you're doing leafy greens like on a big commercial aquaponic farm or something like that, where you're not, or even to a lesser extent vegetables, it can be great for that, don't get me wrong. But for trying to dial it in exactly like we do for cannabis and stuff like that, it can definitely cause more complication, in my opinion, than it might be worth. I know that we're going to be trying to experiment with some of that up in Canada here, so I'll let you know how it works out, and we'll see what we come up with. Yeah, can't talk too much about it, but we got some cool things coming for you guys in the future. Once that gets farther along, the facility up there is going to be pretty freaking big, so you guys will like it. Lots of cool content coming from there later in the year.
It's gonna be awesome.
Does that answer your question, MPK Kyle? Think of it just like a compost tea brewer for fish waste, basically. That's all you're doing. You're taking fish waste from your filters. You're going to brew it up. Sometimes they'll do it anywhere from 1 week to, a couple days to a couple weeks, depending on what they're doing. There's all different types of additives you can add to it, to do different things to it. It just depends on what you're doing. There's actually a couple of different websites out there. I know Backyard Aquaponics is a pretty extensive thread on that as well, over in Australia.
I either put it on my backyard, like just spread it out in the soil garden.
Yeah, kicks ass for that.
Yeah, piece of cake. Or if I'm not, like in the wintertime when I'm not doing anything, I just feed it to the worms, mix it right in. Obviously, it will increase the nitrogen that you get out of the worm bin, which I generally try to not put any greens in, to keep nitrogen out of. But that's sort of the only time of year that I put stuff in there that would consume nitrogen, or not consume, but produce nitrogen out of that. So, but those are other ways that you can, which I guess is essentially demineralizing it, but it's not a demineralization like tank or process or anything. You're just, feeding it to stuff. So it kind of depends on what you're using it for. If you've just got a home grow like mine, then you probably have no need for a mineralization tank, to be honest.
Yeah, mineralization tanks are good if you're doing large lettuce systems or greens, or even to a lesser extent vegetables. But again, it can make balancing your nutrients much more difficult.
Kyle says, how does that differ from a media bed with worms? And I guess the short answer is that normally solids build up faster than the number of worms will be able to handle in a media bed. I have had some success with like overpopulating them. So basically I take a whole bunch of worms out of my worm bin and just harvest them out of there. And basically you can just take like a mesh bag, like even cheesecloth or something like that, and suspend it, and they'll just crawl right out of the bottom into a bucket. So I'll take a whole bunch of worms and put them into a bed and be able to significantly reduce the amount of solids. But they generally, even once the population of worms balances back out, solids tend to build back up, even in low population systems. So generally you want some place in the system solids, and then end up feeding them off to, either a garden bed or a worm bin or something else besides that.
Yeah. Another thing I'll tell you is fish waste is amazing for vermicompost. I know that Ouroboros, they have bins and bins and bins filled with worms, and they are all fed off their fish waste, and they I know they distribute them to some local garden centers and fishermen and stuff like that. So that can be a great way to make supplemental income off your system if you have a larger, heavier volume system and a lot of fish waste being produced. The other one that we did um, when I worked back at the aquaponics source that we were working on that never came to fruition, but it was something that we were trying to put together, was there's a big aquaculture company called Beaver Creek Fish Farms that happened to be located nearby, and we were trying to work out a deal where we could take his fish waste and dry it out, basically make big long tracks, almost like a raft bed, but real shallow, and then basically dump your fish waste into that, and then dry it out in the sun, and then come back and pick it up. It turns into like a potato chip of fish waste, and it has no smell to it. It is really, really good as far as mineral nutrients. It's a great soil supplement. You can use it for compost tea brewing, but it stabilizes it and it makes it so you can store it real easily without having this stinky sludge around. But when you dehydrate it, it works really good. It's an amazing fertilizer. It's in my opinion, that works a little bit better if you're going to do mineralization. I noticed it doesn't spike the nitrogen quite the same when you wet it down. So that can be a great way to where you can bag it up and sell it as, if you want to have, if you got a bigger business, or even just use it in your soil garden, it's great.
It's great for your soil garden. And what I do is, obviously I'm aware of when I put the fish waste in the worm bin and when I'm not. And I do have some separate ones. Like I have one that I use just for like lawn clippings and different stuff that, and any green waste that I don't want to put in what I call the flower bin. So everything that, basically that is fruit or flowered at one point and is waste from that, I put into the flower bin. And then I have greens or clippings or different stuff like that.
So,
and then
what don't you put in your compost? I know we don't put in nightshades or avocado. Potato skins are another one that's a no-no. What are some of the other things that you avoid, for those of you that aren't aware?
I don't do any sort of like manure, so I'm not putting chicken poop in there or anything like that. Nothing from anything warm-blooded, basically. So fish waste is about the only poop that ever ends up there, unless you count worm poop, obviously. So no meat, so nothing that's been cooked, no raw meat. So don't do anything. Some stuff that you would normally do in like a big ground compost or a big barrel or something like that. I would say those are about the only things I avoid. I do avoid orange peels in large quantities. I don't mind like, an orange every now and again, or like, if you get a bag of oranges at the store, I would eat them all at once and then throw them all in at one time. I try to only do a few of those, and that's just because they, obviously they're citric, which contains citric acid, and can definitely, a lot of them can cause an issue in there. So the other thing I do make out of them is a cleaner. So kind of like you have Orange Clean you buy at the store. I'll get too technical with it, but basically you can soak it in vinegar and then dilute it, and it's basically the same thing. So you can look up a lot of different process for how to do that, but that's what I do.
Cool. Does anybody else in chat have any other questions? Alrighty. I think that was a pretty good show, considering this started off with the guest having technical issues and having to push back a week. So
yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, let's talk about a lot of different topics and stuff today, and you got to show off all your beneficial bugs. For those of you guys that don't know, as far as beneficial bugs, the biggest producer of beneficial bugs in North America is Disney. Disney uses only beneficial bugs that are bred through their own program for insect control in all their parks. They also, I think, sell to Six Flags and some of the other big amusement parks, but they're the people in North America with the biggest insect program, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, they sell to a lot of the big distributors too. So yep. A lot of the companies, like a lot of the big companies that resell them, have sourced them from Disney to start with. So they do a lot of great stuff, actually.
Yeah.
Cool.
yeah, it's really cool to see, you know, a handful of big companies actually giving a shit and spending money on long-term control that way. And you know, when you do that scale of it, you end up saving a lot of money because it's when you're doing it on that scale, it's a hell of a lot cheaper than trying to spray that kind of square that acreage. You know,
Oh
think
God,
about how many trillions of dollars or millions and billions of dollars it would take to do insect spraying all the time. Not to mention the liability of the chemical reactions to any of those. You know.
yeah, it's crazy.
Ladybug ain't gonna cause you to have a chemical reaction, you know.
Right. I mean, the worst you're gonna have to do is sweep some up off the floor. You know what I'm saying?
Right? Or fish them out of your grow lights.
Luckily, all these, because of the shape of the hood, they just fall right down. So
Oh, they don't. You don't have glass over them.
no, no, they're just open.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. Do you want to plug your channel and everything, and we'll wrap things up?
Oh yeah, so AP Meds. You can find me on Patreon. So patreon.com/AP Meds. YouTube channel is AP Meds. Hit us up on the Aquaponic Cannabis Growers group. We've been getting a lot of new members in there, so that's been really great to see more people in there, and hopefully we've been seeing consistent people on the podcast, so that's been great. NP Kyle or NPK Kyle, thanks for dropping in.
Yeah.
Brain Grow, always good to see you, man.
Heck yeah. Yeah, Marty and I are trying to.
Much,
We're trying to be better about not missing Thursdays and stuff, or at least doing once a week. We're gonna end up having to shuffle around a little bit because of some of these guests. We're trying to get some cooler guests on the show. In case you guys haven't noticed, especially this year and the last couple months, we've had a lot of really amazing guests on the show, and we're trying to keep that going. So sometimes it might be shifted from Thursdays, but we're doing our best to keep it on Thursdays. So please bear with us if we end up moving it around a little. But if we do, it'll be for a good reason. And check out my channel. I got a Potent Ponics. I've been releasing a bunch of cool little videos I took while last trip I was at Ouroboros.
yeah, those are cool. The shrimp video, man, I like that.
Yeah, so feel free to check those out. Go over to ouroboros.com, check it out. I teach classes over there, the cannabis class and the medicinal herb class. They also have a farm class and some other cool stuff. Be sure to go check them out. And I teach a couple of the classes for them. And then trying to think what else there is. I think that's about it. Come out to Dude Grows show or the Dude Grows Cup if you guys want to come meet me. I will be out at the Dude Grows Cup along with Fish Ganja Guy. What's that?
It's a private event. They can't come.
No. You can. That was a misunderstanding. You can. Well, yeah, technically it's a private event, but you can go on their website and become a judge if you want to. You just have to be a member of. How they're doing is you have to be a member of the website, which then you're a member of their membership or whatever. It's just a loophole with the.
I thought that's what Scotty said when he was on here. So.
No, if you, yeah, it was just a miscommunication on that. So, but yeah, if you're interested,
come to the Dude Grows Cup.
Yeah, go to the Dude Grows Cup if you're interested in getting together, or if you're in Colorado and you want to go throw down against some other big growers. There may or may not be some aquaponic herb that appears there, and I know Ganja Guy's entering some. We'll see if some doesn't magically fall from the sky there too, and see how that makes it there. So, yeah, let me know if you guys want to meet me there, and we'll kick it. And yeah, thanks for joining the show again. Sorry about the guests, and we'll have one, maybe two shows next week because of the guests. If we do an off-wax show, it'll probably be abbreviated. So I appreciate everyone for coming out, and look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thanks a lot.
See you later. Peace.